The echo of her own words still rang in Gloria's ears. "Don't sign that paper." Even after the guards froze mid-stride and the room went still, she could feel her heart pounding like a drum against her ribs. Every pair of eyes was on her, men in tailored suits, women in polished heels, faces tight with disbelief. She wanted to disappear, yet something in her chest refused to let her retreat. Leonard Briggs straightened slowly. The billionaire everyone admired for his composure now looked genuinely unsettled. "Who are you?" he asked, voice steady but low. "Gloria, sir," she said, clutching the mop handle. "I clean this floor." A murmur rippled through the boardroom. One director whispered, "Security should have cleared her out." Another chuckled under his breath. Leonard lifted a hand, silencing them. His eyes locked on hers, not angry, just curious. "You said I shouldn't sign." "Why?" Her throat tightened. The words that had felt so urgent seconds ago now tangled in fear. "Because," she started, but her voice cracked. "Because that document isn't what you think it is." Hartley leaned back in his chair, smiling lazily. "Mr. Briggs, we can handle this after the signing." "I have no time for..." Leonard cut him off. "No. Let her finish." Gloria's hands trembled. She wasn't supposed to be here. She wasn't supposed to speak. But she thought of her husband, his face the night everything collapsed, the way his hands shook as he tore the last invoice in half. She took a breath. 15 years ago, she said, you did business with a man named Richard Hartley. The room fell silent. Even the reporters stopped whispering. Leonard frowned. "You know him?" "I knew what he did," Gloria said quietly. "He promised families like mine investment returns that never existed. My husband believed him. We lost our home. We lost everything." Hartley's confident grin faltered, then returned, thinner. "Mr. Briggs, you can't honestly be listening to this." Leonard's tone sharpened. "Let her speak." Gloria lowered her eyes. "I spent years rebuilding. My husband didn't make it. When I saw his name on that contract, I couldn't stay silent." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Leonard reached for the folder. "Clause 14, she whispered. "Bottom of page 7. He flipped the pages quickly, scanning the dense paragraphs of legal text until his eyes stopped. A single sentence, buried deep within the document, froze him. "All patents and intellectual property developed under Briggs Innovations shall transfer to Hartley Global Technologies upon execution of this merger." His jaw tightened. He looked up slowly. "You are going to take my company?" Hartley's laugh came out thin. "Standard merger language. My lawyers." "Your lawyers almost tricked mine," Leonard said flatly. He closed the folder and laid the pen on top of it. "Meeting's over." The cameras clicked frantically. Security moved in, but this time it wasn't for Gloria. 2 guards approached Hartley instead. "This is absurd," Hartley barked, but Leonard's voice cut through him like ice. "Leave my building. Now." When the doors finally shut, the room exhaled. The reporters had been ushered out, the executives whispered excuses, and within minutes, only 3 people remained: Leonard, his assistant Clara, and Gloria, still clutching her mop like a shield. Leonard rubbed his forehead, exhaustion washing over him. "You saved me from signing away 20 years of work." Gloria shook her head. "I just told the truth." He studied her quietly. The woman before him was older than he'd first thought, lines etched from years of struggle, eyes carrying both grief and strength. "How did you even notice that clause?" "I clean the printing rooms at night," she said. "I saw the drafts. I shouldn't have read them, I know, but when I saw his name, I couldn't ignore it." Leonard exhaled slowly. "Most people would have." "Most people didn't lose everything to him," she replied. That sentence lingered in the air. Hours later, the office floor was empty again. The reporters were gone, the director silent, and the deal that was supposed to crown Leonard's empire lay shredded in the recycling bin. He stood by the window, staring at the city below. The lights that once felt like victory now looked distant, meaningless. For the first time in years, he felt something strange, humility. Behind him, Gloria gathered her cart. "Thank you," he said quietly. She turned. "For what, sir?" "For being braver than everyone else in that room." Her eyes glistened, but she kept her composure. Sometimes courage is just what's left when fear has already taken everything. Leonard almost smiled. "You speak like someone who should be running the place." She shook her head. "I just keep it clean." He watched her walk toward the elevator, each step steady, deliberate. The faint sound of her cartwheels echoed down the hall until the doors closed behind her. Later that night, Leonard sat alone at his desk. He replayed every moment in his head, her trembling voice, the disbelief in his bored's eyes, Hartley's smirk. He opened the contract again and stared at the ruined papers. One line kept haunting him, transfer of ownership. He'd almost lost everything because he trusted signatures over instincts. He picked up his phone and called Clara. "Find out how that clause made it through legal," he said. "I want every draft reviewed." "Yes, sir," she replied. He hesitated, then added, "And see that Mrs. Gloria Mensa receives a month's paid leave." Quietly. When he ended the call, he leaned back, eyes closing. For the first time, he wondered how many people like her he'd walked past without noticing. Down in the staff locker room, Gloria changed out of her uniform. Her hands still trembled as she folded the black shirt, the company's logo stitched above the pocket. The other cleaners chatted softly, unaware of what had just happened upstairs. She stared at her reflection in the mirror, tired eyes, silver strands escaping her scarf. She thought of Matthew, her late husband, and whispered, "You can rest now." A single tear slid down her cheek, but this one felt different. It wasn't grief anymore. It was relief. Outside, dawn began to break over the city. The sun rose over the glass towers of Briggs Innovations, lighting the empty conference room where torn papers still littered the floor. A deal had died there tonight, but something else had begun. In the quiet, Leonard's words echoed softly, as if the building itself had heard them. Sometimes courage is just what's left when fear has already taken everything. And on the silent floor of a billionaire's empire, a janitor's voice had finally been heard. The morning sun washed over the city, painting the towers gold. Gloria walked home slowly, her shoes scuffing the pavement. Her shift was over, yet her mind was still trapped in that boardroom, in Leonard's shocked face, in Hartley's smirk. She thought it was over, that part of her life she'd buried deep. But the sight of that name had cracked open a door she'd spent 15 years trying to keep shut. As she turned the key to her small apartment, the memories came rushing back. 15 years earlier, Legos buzzed with promise. Back then, Gloria and her husband Matthew Mensa ran a modest logistics company, 2 trucks, 1 rented warehouse, and dreams bigger than both. Matthew had ambition in his bones. He worked dawn to midnight, believing hard work could rewrite destiny. One afternoon, he came home holding a glossy brochure. "Gloria, we've been invited into a partnership," he said, eyes bright. Across the cover, in bold letters, read, "Hartley Global Investment Group." The man behind it, Richard Hartley, was everywhere. Billboards, newspapers, radio interviews. His smooth voice promised opportunity. He said he wanted to empower small businesses with funding and international expansion. To Matthew, it sounded like a miracle. "Gloria, this is our chance," he'd said, gripping her hands. She'd smiled, trusting his faith. "If you believe in it, I do too." They mortgaged the house. Sold one of the trucks. Within months, they'd handed over everything to Hartley's growth fund. For a while, it looked real. Emails came with stamped documents. Meetings were held in hotel halls. Hartley even shook Matthew's hand, his gold watch glinting under the lights. "Partnerships like yours are the future," he'd said. But one morning, the phone lines went dead. By noon, the office building was empty. The website vanished. And Hartley? Gone. The government later called it a sophisticated fraud. Thousands of small business owners lost everything. Matthew was one of them. He tried to stay strong, telling Gloria he'd rebuild. But each week, new debts arrived. Each night, his silence grew heavier. Then one evening, she found him sitting at the dining table, staring at an unpaid bill. He looked up, eyes hollow. "I'm sorry, Gloria. I failed you." She never got to answer. He was gone before morning. The years that followed blurred together, police reports, debt collectors, whispers from neighbors who once envied them. Gloria sold what was left, moved into a one-room flat, and worked wherever she could, first as a cleaner in a market, then a factory, and eventually at Briggs Innovations. She raised her 2 children alone, feeding them on faith and discipline. Through it all, she carried one rule: never trust a man who promises too much too easily. 15 years later, when she walked into the CEO's office that night, that name, Hartley, had hit her like thunder. Her grip had tightened on the mob. Her pulse quickened. No, she had whispered to herself, staring at the folder. It can't be the same man. But she knew. The signature style, the arrogance in those printed words, it was him. The man who'd destroyed her world was about to destroy someone else's. She looked at the city through the glass windows, lights flickering like restless ghosts. The memory of Matthew's last words echoed softly, "I failed you." She wiped her eyes and stood taller. "Not this time," she whispered. "If it's him, I can't stay silent." And for the first time in 15 years, Gloria felt something stronger than fear: purpose. The news spread fast. Every major outlet ran the headline before noon. Briggs Innovations to merge with Hartley Global Technologies, a $1.2 billion power deal. Cameras swarmed the building entrance. Flashbulbs burst against tinted car windows. Inside, the energy was electric. Executives walked briskly through the corridors, phones pressed to their ears, talking about stock surges and expansion forecasts. On the top floor, Leonard Briggs stood before the glass wall of his office, hands clasped behind his back. Below him, the city looked small, like a map he already owned. He didn't smile. Leonard rarely smiled anymore. Behind him, his assistant Clara stood with a tablet, reading through notes. "The press conference is confirmed for Friday at 10, she said. "Hartley's legal team has approved the final draft. All we need is your signature, sir." Leonard turned, his expression unreadable. "Any concerns from our end?" "None that I can see. Our lawyers cleared the paperwork yesterday." "Good," he said. "The sooner this is done, the sooner we move on." Clara hesitated. "The board wants to accelerate the timeline. They think the delay makes us look uncertain." Leonard gave a faint smirk. "Let them talk. They forget who built this company from nothing." He picked up the contract folder and flipped through the pages, eyes scanning lines of legal jargon. He didn't notice the name that would soon haunt him. Downstairs, Gloria moved silently through the corridor, mop in hand. She'd avoided the executive floor since that morning, trying to calm her nerves. Yet curiosity gnawed at her. The entire building seemed obsessed with the merger. Workers whispered about bonuses, managers rehearsed speeches, and even the janitors talked about the billionaire with the golden pen. But Gloria didn't share their excitement. That name, Hartley Global, still twisted her stomach. As she emptied a trash bin outside the conference room, she heard voices through the half-open door. Inside, Leonard sat at the head of the table with 2 board members and a video call projected on the wall. Richard Hartley's face filled the screen, smooth smile, silver hair, the confidence of a man who'd never been told no. "Leonard, we're in the final stretch," Hartley said, voice slick and rehearsed. "This partnership will redefine innovation. Once we finalize the ownership transition, everything else will flow naturally." Leonard nodded. "As long as our patents remain protected, I'm satisfied." "Of course," Hartley replied, almost too quickly. "The paperwork already covers IP migration. Nothing to worry about. The phrase ownership transition echoed again. Clara was taking notes, her pen scratching quietly. Leonard leaned back. I trust your word, Richard. Logic says this partnership benefits both sides. Hartley's grin widened. Exactly what I love about you, Leonard, all logic, no drama. Business is about precision, not emotion. Leonard chuckled faintly. That's what makes it work. The call ended with polite farewells. Outside the door, Gloria's hands tightened on the mop handle. Ownership transition. IP migration. The words sent a chill through her. She knew that language. She'd seen it before, on the fake investment agreement Hartley made her husband sign 15 years ago. Different words, same poison. Her breath quickened. She pressed her back against the wall, trying to steady herself. She remembered Matthew's excitement the night he signed the papers. She remembered the silence that followed. When the board members exited moments later, Gloria slipped inside quietly. The contract sat open on the table, the pages still warm from use. She glanced down, scanning for those same words. There it was, Clause 14. The paragraph blurred through her tears, but she caught enough to know. This wasn't a merger. It was a takeover. Her chest tightened. She backed away, heart racing. Leonard's voice echoed faintly from his office, calm and confident, a man who thought logic made him safe. Gloria closed her eyes, whispering to herself. He's about to make the same mistake my husband did. And as she walked down the hall, her reflection trailed behind her in the polished floor, a ghost of a woman once fooled by the same man, now standing in the path of another. The next morning, the top floor of Briggs Innovations looked like a scene from a movie premiere. Bright lights, clicking cameras, polished suits, and champagne glasses balanced on trays. Reporters whispered in excitement as executives smiled for photos beneath a massive banner that read, Briggs Innovations plus Hartley Global Technologies, the future begins today. Leonard Briggs stood at the head of the long glass table, every inch the picture of control. His charcoal suit was perfectly pressed, his expression calm, confident. The exhaustion from the previous weeks was hidden behind the same polished mask he wore for every public appearance. Across from him sat Richard Hartley, silver hair gleaming under the lights, his charm as sharp as ever. He laughed easily with the board members, a man who had already decided victory belonged to him. The contract lay open between them, thick with promises and lies. At the far end of the room, almost invisible, Gloria wiped the edges of the marble floor, pretending to clean. Her mop stood beside her, but her eyes never left the table. Each word from Hartley felt like a blade reopening old wounds. Her pulse raced. She knew what was about to happen. The moment Leonard picked up the pen, her palms began to sweat. Every instinct screamed at her to speak, but fear glued her feet to the ground. One of the reporters leaned closer, camera flashing. Hartley grinned and said, "Let's make history, Mr. Briggs." Leonard nodded. "Let's do it." He uncapped the pen. And that's when Gloria's voice cut through the room like glass. "Sir, please don't sign that document." The sound froze everyone. The cameras stopped clicking. Conversations died mid-sentence. Dozens of heads turned toward the janitor standing by the door, clutching her mop like a weapon. The boardroom erupted in whispers. "Who let her in here?" someone snapped. Security moved instantly, but Leonard's voice stopped them cold. "Wait." He turned slowly toward her, eyes narrowing. "What did you say?" Gloria's voice trembled, but her resolve held. "Don't sign that paper, sir." Hartley's smile faltered, then returned, tighter this time. "This is ridiculous," he said smoothly. "Please, Mr. Briggs, continue. The staff can be dealt with later." But Leonard didn't move. There was something in her tone, something that didn't sound like arrogance or madness. It was fear. And truth. He stepped closer. "Who are you to interrupt a billion-dollar deal? She swallowed hard. My name is Gloria Mensa. I clean your offices. Her voice wavered, but she didn't back down. That man sitting across from you, Richard Hartley, he took everything from my family. The air thickened. Reporters leaned forward. The executives froze mid-motion. Hartley let out a soft laugh, but his eyes flickered. I don't know what story you're telling, but... Gloria raised her chin. 15 years ago, my husband trusted him. We invested in his company, believing every word he said. By the time we realized it was a scam, we'd lost everything, our home, our savings, and eventually, my husband's life. Gasps rippled through the room. Leonard's hand slowly lowered, the pen resting against the table. For the first time, his confident expression cracked. He turned his gaze toward Hartley, whose smile had gone stiff. Is this true? Leonard asked quietly. Hartley shifted in his chair. Baseless rumors. You can't take business advice from a janitor. But Leonard's curiosity had already taken root. He didn't believe in coincidences. And the look in Gloria's eyes, steady, haunted, desperate, told him this was no coincidence at all. Security, he said calmly, still watching Hartley, no one leaves this room. The murmurs turned to silence. Hartley's jaw tightened. Gloria stood trembling but unbroken. And for the first time that morning, the merger everyone thought was destiny began to unravel, because one woman refused to stay quiet. The silence in the boardroom could have swallowed a heartbeat. Cameras had been shut off, reporters escorted out. Only Leonard, his board, Hartley, and Gloria remained. Leonard folded his arms, his sharp gaze fixed on the woman still standing near the door. You've made a serious claim, he said evenly. Now tell me everything. Gloria's fingers twisted around the handle of her mop. Her voice trembled at first, but every word grew steadier. 15 years ago, my husband, Matthew, ran a small logistics business. We were trying to expand. Then we met Richard Hartley. She turned her eyes toward him. He promised us an investment program. Said it would make small companies like ours global partners. He told us to trust him. Hartley smirked faintly, but didn't interrupt. Gloria continued, her tone quiet but sure. We sold our home. Invested everything. And overnight, the company disappeared. So did he. Thousands lost their savings. My husband couldn't take it. He ended his life. A ripple of discomfort moved through the room. Some board members shifted in their chairs, others looked away. Hartley leaned forward, his smile polite but cold. Mr. Briggs, this is a tragic misunderstanding. I ran a legitimate firm years ago. If a few people failed to understand the risks. Stop, Leonard said sharply. His voice echoed through the room. You expect me to ignore this? You're sitting in front of me with the same charm, the same promises, and you want me to believe it's coincidence? Hartley's tone darkened. I came here for business, not ghost stories. But Gloria didn't flinch. She pointed toward the contract on the table. Sir, please read Clause 14. Leonard hesitated. Clause 14? His legal advisor, a thin man in glasses, flipped quickly through the pages until he stopped. His eyes moved line by line, and then froze. He looked up, pale. Sir, she's right. Leonard frowned. What does it say? The advisor cleared his throat, his voice uneasy. Upon merger completion, all intellectual property, patents, and proprietary software under Briggs Innovations automatically transfer to Hartley Global Technologies for strategic consolidation. It's total ownership. The board erupted. What? That can't be right. Who approved that clause? Leonard's chest tightened. His empire, the company he built from a garage to a skyscraper, was about to be signed away under his own name. Hartley raised his hands defensively. Leonard, listen. It's just legal phrasing. A formality for asset alignment. Leonard's eyes burned. A formality? You buried a theft inside a partnership contract. Now, let's not exaggerate. Leonard's fist hit the table with a crack that made everyone jump. I built this company from nothing. You thought you could waltz in and take it while smiling for the cameras? Hartley's smooth voice faltered. You're making a mistake. No, Leonard said, voice cold. The mistake was letting you through my door. He turned toward Gloria. She looked terrified yet unyielding. He nodded once, gratitude flickering beneath his anger. Then he picked up the contract, stared at the thick pages of deception, and slammed it down with finality. Meeting's over. Hartley's jaw tightened. You'll regret this. Leonard stepped forward, eyes hard. The only thing I regret is almost trusting you. 2 security guards entered quietly, waiting for orders. Show Mr. Hartley out, Leonard said. As they led the investor away, Hartley's false confidence crumbled. When the doors closed, Leonard turned to his board. Every clause. Every draft. I want it all reviewed by tonight. Then his gaze softened as it met Gloria's. You just saved my company, he said quietly. She shook her head. I just couldn't let him destroy another family. Leonard looked down at the torn contract one last time. Money, reputation, logic, all the things he once trusted most, had nearly blinded him. But one voice, trembling and brave, had cut through it all. And for the first time in years, Leonard Briggs felt something beyond pride. He felt humbled. By noon the next day, the story had broken. News headlines blazed across every screen. Briggs Innovations halts billion-dollar merger. Hartley Global accused of corporate deception. Reporters crowded the entrance of the glass tower, microphones flashing like lightning. Cameramen shouted questions Leonard refused to answer. Inside, chaos ruled. Executives whispered in hallways. Phones rang non-stop. Investors demanded explanations. The deal that was meant to crown Leonard's legacy had collapsed in one public heartbeat, thanks to a janitor's warning. Hartley's fall was swift and brutal. Within hours, the media dug up his past scandals. Old victims spoke. New lawsuits surfaced. The charming businessman who had fooled half the industry vanished from view, his empire unraveling piece by piece. Meanwhile, inside Briggs Innovations, silence filled the 45th floor. The conference room still smelled faintly of spilled champagne and fear. Leonard stood at the head of the long table, sleeves rolled up, eyes sharp. How, he demanded, did Clause 14 make it through legal review? No one answered. A few directors avoided his gaze. Finally, Clara, his assistant, slid a folder across the table. We found this in the finance server, sir. Inside were payment receipts, offshore accounts, anonymous wire transfers, all leading back to 3 senior executives. Bribes. Leonard stared at the numbers in disbelief. People he trusted had sold him out. Effective immediately, he said, voice low but steady, they're suspended. Legal will handle the rest. He exhaled, shoulders heavy. From now on, every document crosses my desk before it reaches a signature line. The boardroom was silent except for the sound of pens scratching notes. Word of what Gloria had done spread quietly through the company. Among the lower staff, she became something of a legend. Did you hear? Whispered one cleaner. She stopped the boss from losing everything. Others looked at her differently, half admiration, half unease. Some avoided her, unsure how to speak to the woman who'd stood up in front of billionaires. But Gloria didn't act any different. She still arrived before dawn, still scrubbed the same floors. When the others asked why she hadn't demanded a reward, she simply said, doing the right thing is reward enough. 2 days later, Leonard found her on the mezzanine, polishing the glass railing that overlooked the city. He walked up quietly, hands in his pockets. You should be at home resting, he said. Gloria smiled faintly. I rest better when things are clean. He studied her for a moment, this woman whose voice had stopped his downfall. Gloria, he said softly, you saved this company. She shook her head. I just couldn't let it happen again. Again? Her eyes drifted toward the skyline. I saw my husband's face that day. I couldn't watch someone else lose everything the way he did. Leonard didn't speak for a while. The weight of her words settled between them. Then he nodded slowly. You know, for years I believed logic was the key to good business. But you reminded me, without conscience, logic becomes greed. Gloria gave a small smile. Sometimes people just need someone to remind them to look up from the papers. Leonard looked out at the city, where his reflection merged with hers in the glass. He saw it clearly now, the divide between wealth and wisdom wasn't as wide as he thought. That evening, he called an emergency meeting. No suits. No rehearsed speeches. Just truth. From this day forward, Leonard said, we rebuild with transparency. No hidden clauses. No silent deals. And no voices ignored. The staff exchanged glances, surprised by his tone. For the first time in years, Leonard Briggs didn't sound like a businessman giving a lecture. He sounded like a man learning to lead again. And somewhere outside the glass walls, a janitor wiped away a final streak from the floor, quiet, unseen, but the reason the empire still stood. The morning sun poured through the tall windows of Briggs Innovations, scattering gold across the lobby floor where Gloria worked silently. The buzz from the merger scandal had finally started to fade, but whispers still followed her wherever she went. That's when Leonard's voice came from behind her. Gloria. She turned quickly, startled to see him standing there, not in a suit this time, but in a simple shirt, sleeves rolled up, coffee cup in hand. He smiled faintly. You're hard to find when you're not saving companies. Gloria looked embarrassed. Sir, I was just finishing up. I'll get out of your way. He shook his head. Actually, I was hoping you'd join me for coffee. My treat. She blinked, unsure if he was joking. Sir, I don't think that's necessary. Neither do I, he said, voice